They want to make it much more difficult and for people to be afraid of even selling goods that are legitimate, used goods that are legitimate, or even new goods that are legitimate. And there's a lot of innocent people that are being caught up in this stuff. And to me, there ought to be an act that's protecting online resellers. I'm not exactly holding my breath. Hello everybody, welcome back to the cabin. Welcome back to Commonwealth Flipper. I am going to talk about something today that I wasn't going to talk about until much later in the year. I was going to do a dedicated video on this, and I'm still going to do a dedicated video on this so we can explore all the things connected to it, because I think that this is an important topic. You know, if there is such a thing as an existential threat to reselling, I think it's this kind of stuff. It's not the fact that, you know, shipping prices continue to go up and fees go up. All that stuff's important, but I think this one trumps all of it, no pun intended. I really think this is an important topic. And we're going to get into it a little bit today, just as a heads up to be looking at this stuff over the coming year and see where it's going, because I think collectively as resellers, we owe it to each other to do something about this, at least something that's in our control. But we've got a few sales today. Let's go take a look. But for those of you who have been around this show for a while, all of our shows, no matter how topical they are, well, 99% of them, we pick items as well. And that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to basically mix in the sales with this topic today, every other sale. And actually, I forgot these yesterday. I printed off the label and forgot to package them. So I'm going to pull these first, just a couple of reduce, like koozie things, nothing big. Got a little bottle opener on the bottom. I think they sold for 10 bucks plus shipping. And for those of you who are new to the show, thank you. We've had like 1,600 new subs this month. More than that if you count the other channel as well. So we appreciate you stopping by, and we're going to get to the topic here after this sale. But sales have continued to be slow for us for the last 2 days. Thank goodness today it looks like there's a good amount of sales coming in, and you'll see those on the next video. But I sold this cassette lot. I basically pulled out anything that was $15 and above, and I put all these in here. There's still some good ones in here. Cracker, Cypress Hill, Stone Temple Pilots, Concrete Blonde. This is a pretty good lot. And I put it on auction, and somebody's going to be able to make a little bit of money on this because they paid $32 plus shipping. There's probably in resale value closer to $70 to $90 in here, but we're trying to keep items at $15 and above, with some exception, obviously. So that one, $32 plus shipping, and it was to a viewer. And I talk about sales being kind of slow the last week and a half around here. And I've heard reports from people that some sales are going crazy. They're doing awesome. Some people are like, nothing is selling whatsoever. I've also heard folks say that Mercari is doing really well right now. And we've had a few sales as well. And we just started to cross-post on there again after we stopped for a little while to get some other stuff done. But this is a viewer sale, and about 1/3 of the sales headed out of here are viewer sales, which is higher than normal. And boy, you can talk about slow sales. If it wasn't for those, they'd be super slow as far as organic sales right now. But like I said, at least today it's popped back up when we've started to sell stuff again. So we will see. This was going to James, and he says, big fan of your YouTube channels for years now. Keep up the great work. So James Roy. There you go. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the cassettes. There are a couple of topics today that we're going to talk about, but one of them, especially the focus, is going to be the Shop Safe Act. I have talked in the past about the Informed Consumer Act, and I think this one's one we haven't talked about much. It's an older act, but it's kind of been revived at the end of last year. And I think it is important that we talk about this topic in particular. So we're going to start the conversation today and probably end it in the beginning of March. Maybe not end it, but do a much larger video. I love selling Thomas the Train stuff, but there's some when you buy a big giant lot that aren't amazing. And so I just lot those all up together and then pull out the ones that individually that can sell for 15, 20, 30 bucks. But this whole lot, we put it all together for $15.95. That's shipping. Now, like I said, I did a video about the Informed Consumer Act, and I never did one about this one. It had been kind of tabled for a while, and I think that one was, I said in that video, I'm not going to go rehash the whole Informed Consumer Act. If you want, you can go check that video out right there. There's been some other folks who have done it as well, including John from Flippin' Ain't Easy and some other folks. But this one's going to focus on this particular act, which may or may not become law, but it's certainly going through the process. And I want to talk about it a little bit today. I'm going to read a few things, pick an item, read a few more things, and then introduce some other things that, combined with this kind of stuff, really do present a threat. And eventually my hope is by the end of, I don't know, throughout the course of this year, there's a couple things that I really want to do that I think are important for protecting all of us in the long run. So my intention is to kind of roll that stuff out a little bit down the road, and I just want to give people a heads up out there for the kind of stuff that is out there. This is not an alarming video or anything like this is the end or whatever. But this is the kind of thing that could, down the road, lead to more and more difficulty, higher and higher costs for reselling, for the reselling platforms, which of course would be passed on to us through higher fees and all kinds of hurdles that we have to get through, possible lawsuits that could come for this kind of stuff for mom and pop type resellers. And so I want to put this out there just as a preview for the future, but let me read this real quick. Brands and marketplace platforms are facing off over a proposal that could add liabilities to sales platforms, not to us, but to sales platforms that don't go far enough to keep counterfeits off of their platform. Just to add a little context to this, this was something, this Shop Safe Act, that's been around. It's, man, I don't know. It was originally introduced, I think, 2020. And it was kind of tabled, and the Informed Consumer Act kind of came in there. My assumption was that this thing was going to die a slow death over time, and it wasn't going to be revived because of that Informed Consumer Act. However, at the end of last year, it was reintroduced. This was from Senator Chris Coons and Tom Tillis, which, if you don't know those names, those are one Democrat, one Republican, and that's what got the Informed Consumer Act passed, which has had ramifications on us, which I don't want to get into completely today because I could talk about it forever. I think there's some serious flaws with it. However, it did get reintroduced. There were hearings on a subcommittee that were, I don't know if it's come to the floor or if it's going to come to the floor eventually or not. It does not have quite the same support, but these are the kind of dangers that are out there. So let me read this. The Shop Safe Act, introduced on September 28th by Senators Chris Coons, Tom Tillis, stands for the Stopping Harmful Offers on Platforms by Screening Against Fakes in E-Commerce, of course. Everything's got to have a made-up name, right? It was previously introduced last session as a means to crack down on counterfeit product sales alongside the Inform Act. And then they've got a link to that. I'm reading this on modernretail.com. So that bill passed with support from both brands and marketplaces. That act, it Informed Consumer Act, and that's sort of right? And requires marketplaces to verify identification, contact information, and bank account information to confirm the identity of third-party sellers. By the way, it did far more than that, and it's going to lead to a few things, but eBay did support it reluctantly at the end because of some concessions, but I'll get into that in a second. But this Nike Dry Fit tee, size XL, white, brand new, no tags, sold for $19.95 plus shipping. This is a really good buy. I'm into these for like $1. And at that price, with multiple quantities, like 100 of them, we're going to make some really good money. Definitely over $1,000 once all said and done, but maybe closer to $1,500 to $1,600 on that one buy. Like I said, I wasn't really going to get into that old one, the Informed Consumer Act, which isn't old because it's been enacted into law. But I want to mention this before I go on with this one. That Informed Consumer Act thing was really about sellers, was about us, and identifying us and all those different things, right? And it's had ramifications, especially when connected with these Schedule A lawsuits that you've heard about coming out of, at this point, Illinois, and I think Florida as well, where, if bank accounts, right? Bank accounts. And so there's only one reason for that, which is to eventually have a lawsuit to recoup money, even though a lot of these cases are just completely ridiculous, and you're being served through email, and you're not even having due process, and it's extortion essentially is what it is, which is just as bad, if not worse, than the folks out there who are selling counterfeit goods on purpose, which is not 99.5% of us who do this stuff for a living. This next one I'm going to show you on the screen right here as I walk to get them, because I'm going to put the camera down because I've sold 3 different posters in a lot. So those 3 posters will go together, $34.95 plus shipping. Of course, when given a choice, eBay, other platforms would certainly push liability onto sellers before they take it on themselves. But this one is going after eBay and making them liable for things as well, but they're doing it in a way that I think is just the wrong way to do it. The Shop Safe Act goes a step further than the Inform Act by requiring those platforms to do more vetting of counterfeit goods, or else be illegally liable for those goods that pose health or safety threats. It has widespread support from retail lobbies, no kidding, like the American Apparel and Footwear Association, Toy Association, and National Association of Manufacturers. So I want to make a comment about that paragraph, and we'll go pick another item and get to the next one. So the whole idea of this Shop Safe Act and Informed Consumer Act and trying to keep consumers safe and all this stuff, that is not. It might be a sliver of the point of this, but I can tell you right now, that is not the point of this. The fact that these retailers are supporting this, the Footwear Association, the Toy Association, the American, all this stuff. Please, this is not about the safety of consumers. That's the excuse to push something. This is about two things. I don't really care what folks' opinion is on this to me because it's important to me here. But this is about two things. It is about protecting massive big businesses, and in doing so, in my opinion, really restricting our first sale doctrine rights to resell used goods or even resell new goods. That's what it's about. Because if it wasn't, they wouldn't deal with all this stuff that wasn't dangerous, right? They would only be talking about the things that are illegally produced or, trademark infringement and all that stuff that had to deal with items that were dangerous. That is nowhere near where the scope of this thing is going. Nowhere near it. So that's just nonsense. The second thing is, let's face it, these big corporations, these are politicians after all, right? So you always got to look into motives. These people have big, deep pockets. And that's why this legislation comes up. And so this isn't necessarily a Democrat-Republican thing here. This is a big government thing and about protecting the consumer when who's getting squeezed here, depending on which act, but both of them eventually squeeze us in the end. And Carl says, here's another one of those fake sales. Thank you, Carl. In other words, a viewer sale. Whoop, I just dropped your Dino. $14.95 for Dino here. Got the tag on it, but it does have a couple of minor little issues, but $14.95. This is all pure profit at this point. We sold that Flintstones stuff off pretty darn good. We still have a little bit left, though. So here's what I mean by pinching us in some way, shape, or form, whether that's through these lawsuits. I've heard stories lately, not to mention any names because they haven't come out publicly, but, of people being sued for outrageous amounts of money for one listing that has some trademark infringement, not even the fact that it's not the real item. I mean, some of this stuff is out of control, and something needs to be done about it. So you can get pinched in that way. That's not even a pinch. That's just straight out robbery. But there's other ways too. Obviously, if now eBay has to implement things, which they've already done, eBay realizes, not just eBay, but all these places realize, if they get a reputation for having fake goods, it's going to hurt them in the long run. Although there are a lot of people out there who want to buy fake goods, and that's a whole nother topic, which I listened to this hearing in the Senate subcommittee, and it just made me want to throw up listening to half this stuff. But regardless, we're going to get pinched in the end. So eBay put tons of money into the shoe verification thing and all that stuff. They've been dumping money into this for reasons that help their business, but also looking forward to the future, thinking of this kind of stuff where these retailers want to reclaim part of their market share losses because of people selling secondhand goods or whatever it is. They see their bottom line changing. That's what this bill is about. That's what all these things are about. And of course, to implement this kind of stuff, it costs money. These platforms aren't doing stuff out of their own free, good, wonderful nature. They're going to pass that cost on to us. And that is, in the end, the goal here for those manufacturers, those retailers, those big brand names, to make it more and more expensive to sell stuff online to make their items more appealing at the higher prices they're selling them. This is a cast iron Coke horse trailer. I'm going to show you a picture of this one as well. It was something I picked up at that sale on the Commonwealth Picker channel just last week. It sold for $40 plus shipping. on that one right there. And I think I paid, I don't know, $5, $7, $8, $10. And I realize these brands need to protect their brand, and I am not for counterfeiting. That's not the argument I'm making. The argument I'm making is they want to go much farther than just doing that. They want to make it much more difficult and for people to be afraid of even selling goods that are legitimate, used goods that are legitimate, or even new goods that are legitimate. And there's a lot of innocent people that are being caught up in this stuff. And to me, there ought to be an act that's protecting online resellers. I'm not exactly holding my breath. I hear Wallen at the door here, so we'll let him in and get his treat for the day. And there are things that we can be doing, and that's what the future videos are going to be about. This is really just to ask people to, hey, you know, educate yourself on some of the stuff that's going on so that it doesn't surprise us too early. I picked this one out of the bin earlier right here. This is a ET wig, little pendant necklace, and this one sold for $5.99 plus shipping. Shout out Ivan as always. Sit. There's a good boy. There you go. I always debate whether we should ship these in this box. My wife always ships them in this box or in these right here with a little cardboard on them, because some folks just want to have them and wear them. Some people want to keep them in the cards, and then I want to ship it in that. But at any rate, I wanted to thank Stacy for buying plans for the Commonwealth Picker shipping table over on CommonwealthPicker.com. So it goes on to say, the proposal introduced in Senate Bill 2934 has made some headway with a hearing from the Senate Judiciary Committee on Intellectual Property last week. Now, this was back, I think, October of last year. But without the same widespread support that the Informed Consumer Act had, it's unclear if the proposal will make it to a vote. I would just suggest that one of the reasons it doesn't have that support is because there are also other big businesses involved here, and politicians don't necessarily like to bite the hand that feeds them too often, and these online selling platforms don't want to take on all the liability on their own. They would much prefer something like the Informed Consumer Act, but there are other legitimate reasons as well. Sold another one of the Taz blue keychains this time. These are going for $10.95 plus shipping. They usually go to viewers, and this one did. This one went to Zoe. She says, hey, Kevin, love watching your pull videos, and I love the topics you talk about and the information you provide. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And she lives nearby. She says she knows how tough it is sometimes to find yard sales around here. And she's adding the keychain to her Looney Tunes collection. Taz is her favorite. So thank you, Zoe. We appreciate it. So the president of the Computers and Communications Industry Association, which counts e-commerce players like Amazon and eBay as members in this association, and that's kind of what I want to talk about down the road a little bit, our own association. I think it is well past time that we do something about this, said that the Senate subcommittee hearing last week that the proposal is highly flawed. The group supported the Inform Act, sort of. They figured it was going to pass so they could get some concessions out of it, so they supported it. And he urged lawmakers to give that bill time to work before adding more laws to this. Sold this Dale Earnhardt tank top, vintage tank top. It wasn't a big winner, but I'll take it because I got it for pennies, $11 plus shipping. Plus it has that mark there at the bottom. This group, obviously, and for good reason, has significant concerns about the Shop Safe Act, including broad, ambiguous definitions, prescriptive and inflexible requirements to escape automatic liability. Automatic liability meaning you're going to be punished regardless of what's actually going on because of things that have not been implemented that were supposed to be implemented. In other words, massive higher costs involved in the whole process and lack of meaningful responsibilities on the brand's side. And that's the issue here. The brand's job is to police their own brand at this point, and they don't like that. Costs them too much money, so they want to pass it off on these platforms who will then pass it off on us. Their solution up to this point, unfortunately, has been do nothing, which I'd much prefer they did nothing, or these ridiculous lawsuits that are starting to pop up and putting blankets over everybody and big giant lawsuits as opposed to taking on individuals, which is the way it ought to be. It might be tough, but it's the way it ought to be, and we ought to fight for that as well, which means the bill will not successfully accomplish what it seeks to address. It's because that's not what it seeks to address. That's just the fact of the matter. Of course it won't accomplish it. What it seeks to address is to continue to handicap these platforms and these platform sellers in a financial way that makes it less likely that we want to do it, which means that people that want their products can't get it secondhand or can't get it cheaper than their massive retail prices. Before I get too worked up here, which is easy on this topic, makes me mad, but my Reseller Genie is giving away 1 free month here. They've already done it, actually, and the winner for that episode, the comment came from Julie P. 390. Contact me, commonwealthpicker@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up with your 1 free month of my Reseller Genie. Anybody else can use code Commonwealth, get 15% off your first month. That's another big threat, of course, which we've talked about before, which is, you know, thank goodness we've avoided this $600 1099 for now, which really restricts a massive amount of the population who wants to resell their merchandise, even at a loss. But that's a different story for a different day. But groups that support the ShopSafe Act, like the American Apparel and Footwear Association, because, you know, there's so much dangerous footwear out there that we need to, you know, come on. Let's at least call this thing what it is. Let's call it the, you know, Protect Big Business, Big Corporations, and Brand Names Act, or something like that. Which, again, I know I'm fiery about this because this is kind of a threat to our future. It's not right here knocking at our doorstep, but this stuff incrementally happens over time. Jennifer Hanks, director of the brand protection with AAFA, that's that American Apparel, told Modern Retail, this website, that a key issue with counterfeits is because they're made of lesser quality materials that could be harmful. But even if the product is safe, there's concern about how the purchaser will view the brand if it's shoddy quality. Okay, but let's be honest, like I said, it's not, they could absolutely care less about, you know, this material not being safe. Come on, give me a break. They're 100% concerned about their brand, and it's not about somebody thinking, oh, they got this knockoff, this isn't really good. It's all about making sure that those knockoffs aren't available so that their products are the only ones that can be sold, which is fine. I've got no problem with that, but at least call it what it is. And of course, she goes on to say that it's about intellectual property misuse, infringement, brand protection issues. Well, it's partially about that, but you get the point. With the ShopSafe Act, again up for debate, hopefully it stays up for debate in that committee, but who knows? That's why I'm saying this. It's something we need to look at. Maybe even talk to the politicians we might know, you know, that kind of thing. Here's what brands need to know about the proposal and where it stands. Sold another Damn It doll. Sold 2, actually. I'll have to look for the other one in a second. We'll grab this one. One to a viewer, one not to a viewer. This is the one I think not to a viewer. Or at least they didn't leave a message. A little geometric design on that Damn It doll right there. $12.95 plus shipping. The rising concern of counterfeits has coincided with the continued growth of e-commerce. This is where the story gets real here, and increased movement of physical sellers to predominantly online platforms. So now the rest of this, they're discussing it in the terms that we all know it's really about to begin with. Platforms have attempted to tackle the issue of counterfeits on their own. Amazon reported taking down $6 million of goods last year, but they face a challenge given the huge volume of products that are sold. So I'll just say this, I think we all know this is true. There could be a way, if these politicians had the guts to actually do what they should do, is to cut off the source of the counterfeit goods. We all know where the source of the counterfeit goods. It's not like some mom and pop shed in their backyard is producing fake Nikes out there. We all know where this stuff is coming from, and there's no political will to deal with that. They'd rather do things that eventually come down on us and on the consumers, enforcing rising prices because there's no alternatives at lower prices for secondhand goods or alternative marketplaces. So another one of these keychains right here. I think this is it. Boy, we're down to 2 left, y'all. That is amazing. This one went to Kim. Kim, thank you. We appreciate it. Quality Seller 1964. See, quality. No counterfeits over there on her store. Love watching your channels. You showed this item, and I knew I had to buy one. My husband has been restoring a Trans Am, 1980 Trans Am, like Smokey and the Bandit. That is awesome. So I knew this would be a perfect gift for him. Thank you, Kim. We really, really do appreciate it. I guess I should tell you it sold for $14.95. Free shipping for those. One left of those. We have tons of other ones. I know I have more in there. I bought a massive buyout. I think maybe there's a few more somewhere, but I'll have to check. What would the ShopSafe Act require. The Shop Safe Act creates a law for trademark infringement, okay, liability. It's not all about safety here. I mean, if you listen to this, you should, maybe I'll put a link to this hearing committee. You'll hear it in there. They're like, airlines are buying fake engines from people and whatever. I'm like, on eBay, give me a break. This is ridiculous. All right, back to this. The law requires, trademark infringement liability would apply to e-commerce platforms that sell a counterfeit good that poses a threat to health and safety unless the platform is providing best practices. And there's where they get you, right? Platforms that are vetting sellers. Okay, we all know how that goes in the Vero system, and just willy-nilly, your whole life is tied up in one reselling platform, and you put one thing up that you think is real and it's not, or even worse than that, it is real and they just say it's not, and you're messed up. And that's happened to many, many people before. Platforms that are vetting sellers, removing counterfeit listings, and kicking off counterfeit sellers would have a safe harbor from liability, according to a current proposal. Brands that have trademarks for their products would be responsible for providing those to the platforms in order to help them be proactive in removing counterfeit products. Now, I will say that right there is something that eBay should implement themselves and vet the brands to make sure that they're not doing anything, that some of these brands are just blanket saying everything is counterfeit or using a word. We really need trademark reform too, because if you've heard some of this stuff, you can't use their word, their name, even if it's the name of the actual item and the item is actually legitimate, but you can't use it because they have a trademark on the name. Well, that's restrictive against the first sale doctrine. So that should be thrown out even if it is true, because you're selling that good. It's not false advertisement. It is what it is. So that's another point altogether. We continue to sell a Damn It doll. This one is to a viewer. Last one wasn't. It's like a poppy. Almost, kind of. Reminds me of that California poppy. At any rate, $12.95 plus shipping. And it's going to, it says Justin, well, okay, I see here. Jub, I think that's your initials. Well, thank you. Hey, Kevin, big YouTube fans here in central Massachusetts. Shout out to my fiance, Lisa? I don't know. This is a gift for her, so I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I hope you enjoy it, and congratulations on your upcoming nuptials. We appreciate the purchase. Hope you enjoy it. Hank says, he's the toy manufacturing guy here, says that the Shop Safe Act's requirements would provide parity between online and in-store retail where it is illegal to sell counterfeits. Well, I've got news for you. It's also illegal to sell counterfeits on online marketplaces, but I get the point. It's the verification and proactive measures in terms of keeping counterfeits off the platforms that is needed. Look, most of us know about Temu out there, and you go on there. There's a market for people in the United States. They don't care. They'll get knockoffs. They'll buy them. They'll do whatever. How come this legislation isn't just laser beam focused on something like that? That's what I want to know. I don't understand why it's not. Well, I kind of have an understanding. And if you know where these products are being made and who's selling them and where they're coming from and all that stuff, you kind of get it. But we're looking at the wrong place here. There are alternative forces at play here, and I think this is a problem. I love selling little lighters, and this is one of those. Made in Japan, this little vintage lighter right here. Sold for not bad money for a tiny little item. $20 plus shipping. This one sold to a viewer. Actually, there's no message on here, but it does say repeat buyer, so I'm going to say thank you to Kevin. Some people they asked me the other day, like, why don't you think every repeat buyer is a viewer sale? And it's simply because I've been selling on here for 22 years. I mean, we've got tons of feedback. We've sold, I don't know how many items. I mean, just a ton of them for sure. I mean, we have 13,000 plus feedback. So, multiply that out by how many sales. That's just on this store, but we used to sell on different stores in the past as well. So there you go. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. By the way, if you are new to this channel, that is my name. So now you know that. And if you wouldn't mind taking a minute, if you've never done it before, and subscribe to this channel, doesn't cost you a dime. Or maybe even go over to the Commonwealth Picker channel. You can subscribe over there and hit that alert bell, and you can get notifications when we come out with new videos. So this Skylanders game right here. And we try to keep things at $15 and above, but video games are so stinking easy that we'll sell them at $10 sometimes plus shipping, and that's what that one sold for. I'm going to read this last part here, which is really the argument against it, which there's many more than this, but we'll at least start with this. The CCIA, which is that group that has eBay as a member in it. They say, in addition to having terms of service that prohibit such activities, the industry supported the passage of the Informed Consumer Act. In other words, we already did this. You know, you didn't do it good enough last time? Well, that rollout has been rocky for some marketplace sellers as they aim to verify their accounts, and there's no doubt there was great difficulty, great expense in this, and, you know, they haven't even waited to see the result. Schurz urged lawmakers to give the Inform Act time to work. Rather than relying on outdated numbers, Congress should obtain the updated information that takes into account this newly enacted implemented law before rushing to pass new legislation that could destroy many legitimate small businesses operating online. And that's kind of the key here. There's more to it than this. They give plenty of reasons why this is ridiculous. You know, I'd like to use this lighter to burn this sucker right up, but in reality, shoot, what they ought to have a bill that stops, this is getting into what I want to talk about later, these ridiculous, in my opinion, completely unconstitutional Schedule A lawsuits that are coming out that are really damaging people as well, coming out of Illinois. I mean, this stuff is abusive. Some higher courts should look at this stuff and just throw this stuff out. It's absurd, but I don't want to get into all that just yet. We're looking at this here today, and it is very true that nobody looks like they're protecting us. They don't see us. They see eBay as eBay, or Amazon as Amazon, or Etsy, or Mercari, whatever these are, Poshmark, whatnot, whatever it is. They see them as faceless entities. And I've talked to eBay about this before, and they've done this to some degree. They should up the game drastically, and so should we as individuals. I'll get into all that, but one example would be, instead of these online selling platforms going up to Capitol Hill to argue against this legislation, they ought to get me to do it. They ought to get you to do it. They ought to get, you know, a 75-year-old grandma who's trying to make money out of her kitchen up there, and we ought to sit in front of them and see what these things, you know, show these folks the effects that it has on people like us, legitimate people who don't want to and don't sell counterfeit merchandise unless it's an accident and a rarity. That's the kind of folks we ought to have up there lobbying against this. So, there you go. I'll get off my high horse. Turner's got some Commonwealth comedy. What do you got, bud?
Why didn't the zombie finish eating the clown?
Why didn't the zombie finish eating the clown? I don't know why.
Because he tasted funny.
Thank you, bud.
Bye.
Reagan's got some CommonwealthPicker.com sales, but you don't have any animals today. What's going on?
Well, no name to sleep in my room, and I don't know where Wallow is. But Boots didn't want to come in here either.
Oh, okay. What do you got?
Bambi got a blue Enderman. Jeffrey got the new Enderman. Jill got a CWP gray shirt. Lisa got a new Enderman, and Jeremiah got a giant sticker Enderman.
All right, we have lovingly started to refer to him as number 2 and him as number 3, which is funny because they're Enderman. And if you watch Trashcast podcast, number 3 is a real thing. So the original, we'll call him number 2. Number 3, we are getting down to the nitty gritty on the number 2s. We just got a new stock. New stock. The 3rd edition came out. So they've been selling pretty good. You're going to have to help me ship them, baby.
Okay. Bye. And don't forget to get your sticker at CommonwealthPicker.com.
All right, it is time to start shipping, but I wanted to thank a few folks out there. Oh, I wanted to tell y'all something. OBX Picker was, I've said something on a previous episode about him going to India and the boys. He was going to bring some die-cast cars to the young men over there, to the boys over there, and then Beanie Babies as well to the girls. And so we put out a little help alert to send some stuff to him, and he was absolutely overwhelmed. He has mountains and mountains of that stuff. So I just want to say thank you that this audience was so incredibly generous to him and eventually to those kids over there when he goes in a couple of weeks. He does not need any more. So thank you so much. He was like, dude, you got to tell him to stop. He's like, there's so many, I can't believe it. But that's just a testament to you guys out there, and I really appreciate that. We also got a thank you from the Isaiah House. We were able to donate over $400 to them. this year, and because you guys were buying those bracelets, I need to get some more of those bracelets. We're putting them over on the Whatnot auctions for like $3, and we give the proceeds to them. And anyway, thank you for your generosity and all that you do for us and all these other entities and charities and stuff. You guys are amazing. Thank you for using all the links. It's been tons of folks sign up for my reseller Genie. You know, if you need it, and a lot of us need that help, thank you for that. All the Code Commonwealth stuff, and you know, the American Bubble Boy and the tape, my go-to tape, all the stuff that you guys do, we really appreciate it. Lives perfectly. And anyway, I just want to say thank you for that, and I will keep you updated on what's going on this year. And I really would love, I'll let the cat out of the bag here, to establish some kind of a group in some way, shape, or form that has two major functions, including protection, legal protection against lawsuits and help in lawsuits, because some of this stuff I keep hearing lately is getting out of hand for some folks, and it only hits a few folks, right? But when it hits them in a big way. And so I'd like to do something and partner with some folks. That's what I'm having difficulty in finding right now, is the right folks to do it. So, because I don't want to actually do it. And I don't want to get caught up in the money and all the stuff that goes in it. But I think it's important, and there's so many of us out there. I think we could probably get it done and make it fairly effective. But we will see. I'm going to continue discussions and throwing around ideas until we get something done. But thank you, as always, for joining us. And go out and watch those videos. Go out and educate yourself on this stuff, because as the days and months pass by, this stuff becomes increasingly more, it's encroaching on our rights as well. So thank you again, and I can't wait to see you next.